Let's roll.
Salty drops of sea spray is stinging my face. My hair, it looks like a child's Barbie's after a day of teasing. I find myself on a random beach and the last of the sunlight is fading into darkness. My eyes drift to my hands where my icicle-colored fingers are gripping a butcher's knife. A taste of disdain fills my mouth. Acid smell burns my nostrils. I find myself thinking over and over again, how did I land here? How did I, a features writer for Marie Claire, end up here? Because you see, while some of my colleagues had the opportunity to sip cocktails in the Maldives or sit front row at New York Fashion Week, I was elbow deep in whale blubber for a travel story on volunteerism. So while I am standing there, and this is not the life I had pictured as a glossy features writer, but I knew one day this would make an endearing story, because you see, I was living the life I had since I was a kid. As a teen, my 9 West Mary Janes would squeak through the aisles of Devil Pick and Pay. My pocket money wasn't for knickknacks or lip gloss. No, it was for the latest pages of Blush magazine. At home, teenage angst and Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill would fill the air. I would sprawl across my bed to devour stories of girls just like me, obsessed with fashion, battling breakouts, and pouring our hearts out about unrequited love. Later, I would graduate to Cosmo, Elle, and Marie Claire magazine. And while some of my teenage years were spent making homemade music videos with friends, much of it was spent getting lost in these glossy pages. It was the stories of real women, narrated by a writer, that made someone else's life feel like my own. But it wasn't just the stories, it was the words, crafted, molded, shaped, that made me step into another world. That's when it clicked. I didn't just want to be a reader, I wanted to be a storyteller. So at 23, I landed a job at Marie Claire magazine. I was finally in the world I had dreamt of since I was a teen. The office had its own magic, the clickety-clack of high heels, the tappity-tap of keyboards, and a heady mix of creative dreams and impossible deadlines. My job every year was to curate and produce the Naked campaign for Marie Claire magazine. It was an annual stress that would twist my insides like my telephone landline cord. My job was to get a dozen celebrities to strip down naked, to protest and to raise awareness around domestic violence issues. There was, of course, at one time, I got summoned up to the 3rd floor to the editorial director's office. Her words hit like a gavel on Judgment Day. I had to reshoot 4 celebrities. I had to get 4 celebrities to go down naked again. One little white lie later, 4 celebrities were reshot and we made our deadline. I was also Marie Claire's accidental Cupid, where every month I had to set up 2 nervous strangers on a blind date for the hot date page. The catch? A photographer and his massive lens, flashing lens, had to stalk nearby. But somehow, 4 couples ended up in long-term relationships, and one even got married and has 2 kids. The job also had additional perks. Goodie bags so heavy it would leave red marks on my forearms, dinners at Le Colombe, and at one time, 10 lifestyle journalists and I had to run around in our underwear at the Arabella Hotel. But then the world went digital. It was like watching the Titanic sink slowly. Glossy titles sinking under while influencers in their flashy light boats drift past. I knew I needed a lifeline, so I pivoted. I became a digital storyteller for brands. But before long, I was in the depths of corporate. Not the place that I imagined to be. By the end of 2024, I was a shell of myself. I did not recognize myself, and so I decided to take a pause, to step off the corporate conveyor belt. I went back to the beginning. I opened my laptop, Carrie Bradshaw style, and I began to write. And the words came back. The words came flooding back. My voice came back. I found myself in the familiar pages of Fair Lady magazine and other online publications. And so I realized I didn't just bloom at 23. I can bloom again at 43. But this time it's different. The bloom is not that perfect bud that was straining after someone else's sunlight. It is looser. It is unapologetic. I'm blooming wild now, not with a perfect, neat rose and trimmed hedges. I'm flooding over. I'm flowing over with color, scent, and life. Thank you.
Thank you. Eulogi. So I want to tell you why I think Eulogi's talk is important. We know that things can change overnight. Industries we thought were so secure, like print magazines, all of a sudden stop. And now we're faced with AI. AI is changing the face of the world, jobs are changing, but Eulogi gives us hope. We know we can reinvent ourselves. We can bloom again at 40, 43, but we could bloom again at 60, and for goodness sake, let's bloom when we're 80. Thank you, Eulogi. Well done.